The average American household spends $475 every month on groceries. That is nearly $6,000 a year. And here is the part that should genuinely bother you. A significant slice of that money never becomes a meal. It becomes the wilted lettuce at the back of your crisper drawer. It becomes the expensive snack bars you bought because you were hungry when you walked in. It becomes the fresh herbs that went slick and dark before you got to them. It becomes packaging, shelf fees, and brand marketing that you funded without knowing it. But what if I told you that there are only 12 groceries you actually need to buy every month? Not 30. Not 50. 12. And if you build your monthly shopping around just these 12 items and stop buying everything else by default, your grocery spend per person drops from roughly $190 down to somewhere between $65 and $80. That is a saving of over $1,300 a year. Per person. I know that sounds like a claim from an ad. It is not. I am going to show you the math in the middle of this video, line by line. You will be able to check it yourself. Here's the thing about this list. These aren't obscure ingredients from a specialty store. They are things you have probably already bought this week, just in the wrong form and the wrong quantities. By the end of this video, you will have a list you can screenshot, walk into any grocery store with, and never impulse buy again. If that is the kind of practical, no-filler content that is useful to you, this channel publishes it every week. Hit subscribe right now, because next week's video is going to make you uncomfortable the next time you walk into a store. I'll explain exactly what it is at the end. For now, let's start with the most efficient food in the entire building. Item 1. Eggs. The 15-cent bird milk. 15 cents. That is what one egg costs you. Not the organic pasture-raised version, though we will get to the store brand conversation later. Just a standard large egg from a standard carton. 15 cents for something that most nutritionists will tell you is one of the most complete foods that exists. Here is what complete actually means. One large egg gives you 6 grams of protein. But not just any protein, a protein that contains all 9 essential amino acids, the ones your body cannot manufacture on its own. Most protein sources are either expensive or nutritionally incomplete. Eggs are neither. They are the reference standard against which protein quality in other foods is literally measured. But here is what the conversation about eggs almost always misses. There is a nutrient called choline, and it is critical for memory formation, brain cell signaling, and liver function. The single richest dietary source of choline? The egg yolk. Not a supplement. Not an expensive superfood. The yolk sitting in the egg you might have been throwing away. This is where the first and most expensive mistake happens. Millions of people buy egg whites in cartons and discard the yolk entirely, convinced the fat is dangerous. What they have just done is remove the most nutritionally dense component of the egg to save themselves approximately 4 calories per yolk. The fat in egg yolks is predominantly unsaturated. The dietary guidelines from the 1980s that condemned it have been substantially revised since then. The yolk is not the villain. It was never the villain. Here is the practical setup. Hard-boil a dozen eggs every Sunday. Refrigerated hard-boiled eggs last a full week. Unpeeled eggs in the shell last 3 to 5 weeks in the refrigerator. You now have grab-and-go protein for every morning without touching a pan. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, baking. Name one other ingredient that pulls all 4 shifts for 15 cents a unit. You cannot. Now let's talk about the food that feeds half the planet for 5 cents per serving, and the storage technique that almost nobody uses that makes it last longer than your appliances. Item 2. Rice, the 5-cent multiplier. A 20-pound bag of white rice costs around $15. That sounds significant until you do the actual math. That bag contains approximately 300 servings. 300. That works out to 5 cents per serving. 5 cents per serving. You cannot construct a 5-cent anything else in a modern grocery store. And 1 cup of cooked white rice delivers 45 grams of complex carbohydrates, sustain steady energy without the blood sugar crash you get from the processed products. Here is what most people get wrong with rice. They cook it in plain water. That is it. That is the entire mistake. Swap the cooking water for chicken broth. Same amount of liquid, same process, same time. Your rice now tastes like it came from a restaurant kitchen. That is the whole trick. No extra cost if you make the stock from bones, which we will cover in Item 8. Now here is the storage angle almost nobody applies. White rice stored in a sealed, airtight container in a cool, dry place lasts 25 to 30 years. That is not an exaggeration. That is verified by FEMA Emergency Preparedness Guidelines and University Extension Food Science research. If you want to extend it even further, drop a small oxygen absorber packet into the container before sealing. You can buy 50 of them online for around $5. Oxygen is the primary driver of food degradation. Remove it, and your rice essentially stops aging. Your rice will outlast your refrigerator, your car, and statistically, several of your gym memberships. But here is something I want to stay with for a moment, and I am going to come back to it at the very end of this video. Rice is not the end goal. Rice is the multiplier. A $4 portion of chicken that serves one person now feeds four. A modest portion of beans becomes a full family meal. Rice is what makes this list a system rather than just a shopping list. And speaking of that connection, rice alone is nutritionally incomplete. What I am about to show you next is what turns rice into something no multivitamin can fully replicate, a combination that has been feeding entire civilizations for thousands of years, for a cost of 30 cents per serving. Item 3. Dried beans, the complete protein unlock. A 1-pound bag of dried pinto beans costs about $2. That single bag soaked and cooked expands into 6 to 7 cups of beans. 6 to 7 cups. That is enough to feed a family of 4, for multiple meals for less than 30 cents per serving. Here is why most people reach for canned beans instead. Convenience. And that convenience costs 3 times the price of dried. 3 times. You are paying the premium for water, salt, and a metal container. That is the entire difference. The overnight soak is not a complicated technique. Put dried beans in a bowl. Cover with cold water. Go to sleep. Drain in the morning. The total active effort is approximately 45 seconds. Your grandmother did not need a video tutorial for this. Neither do you. Now here is where the rice connection pays out. When you eat beans and rice together, you get what nutritionists call a complete protein, a full complement of every essential amino acid your body needs, equivalent to what you would get from meat. Cultures across Latin America, South Asia, the Middle East, and West Africa figured this out independently. The combination is ancient nutritional science. And 1 cup of cooked black beans delivers 15 grams of protein and 15 grams of dietary fiber. Most Americans do not reach 15 grams of fiber in an entire day. You are getting it in a single side dish. Protein covered. Sustained energy covered. Now let's talk about the 13-cent breakfast that your cardiologist would actually be pleased about. Item 4. Oats. The 13-cent cardiovascular asset or asset. A large canister of rolled oats costs around $4 and gives you roughly 30 servings. That is 13 cents per breakfast. The name-brand sugar-coated cereal sitting next to it on the shelf costs $5, runs out by midweek, and crashes your blood sugar before 10 in the morning. That is a measurably worse deal that millions of households make every single week. Here is the science that makes oats different. Oats contain a specific soluble fiber called beta-glucan. Inside your digestive system, beta-glucan forms a gel that slows digestion, stabilizes blood glucose, and this is the part worth paying attention to, physically grabs LDL cholesterol in your gut and removes it from your body before it can be absorbed. The FDA officially recognizes the cholesterol-lowering effect of oat beta-glucan. Studies consistently show a reduction in LDL cholesterol of 5 to 10% within just a few weeks of regular consumption. Your doctor would be visibly pleased with those numbers. But oats are being dramatically underused by most households. You eat them for breakfast and stop there. Here is what you are missing. Blend rolled oats in a blender for 30 seconds and you have oat flour. A bag of oat flour at the store runs $4 to $6. You just made it for free from a $4 canister that is simultaneously giving you 30 breakfasts. Use the oat flour for pancakes, for coating chicken before baking, for thickening soups. The same container is doing 3 separate jobs. Toss whole oats into meatballs as a binder instead of breadcrumbs. Mix them into smoothies. The beta-glucan keeping your cholesterol down is also what keeps you full until noon, which means it quietly eliminates your reason to stop at the vending machine. Before I get to item 5, there is something happening in grocery stores right now that is costing you money on every single item on this list, and most people have no idea it is happening. Since 2021, major consumer packaged goods companies have been running what economists and consumer advocates call shrinkflation. The price on the label stays the same, or increases slightly, while the amount of product inside the package quietly decreases. A canister of oats that was 42 ounces is now 36 ounces at the same price. That is a 16% price increase with zero announcement, zero fanfare, and zero indication on the front of the package. The Bureau of Labor Statistics and Consumer Journalism investigations have documented this across hundreds of products. It is legal. It is widespread. And it is designed to be invisible. Here is how you neutralize it completely on every item you buy. Look at the shelf tag, not the big price in the center, but the small number in the bottom left corner. That is the unit price. Cost per ounce or cost per serving, depending on the category. That number is the only number that tells you what you are actually paying. When you compare two products and one is $8 for 32 ounces and the other is $6 for 20 ounces, without that number, the $6 label wins on instinct every time. That is exactly what the packaging is designed to trigger. Every item on this list, rice, oats, peanut butter, beans, canned tomatoes, has a unit price on the shelf tag. Use it. It takes approximately 3 additional seconds per item. And it removes shrinkflation from the equation entirely, regardless of what any company decides to do with their packaging next quarter. Now back to the list. Item 5. Frozen vegetables. The flash frozen nutrition win. The fresh broccoli in your produce section. It was likely harvested somewhere in California or Mexico, packed into a refrigerated truck, driven 1,000 miles or more, processed through a distribution center, unloaded at your store, and then misted with water under produce lighting to look like it just came out of the ground. By the time it reaches your refrigerator, it could easily be 10 to 14 days past harvest. The frozen broccoli in the freezer aisle was flash frozen within hours of harvest. Not days. Hours. Researchers at UC Davis, in a study published in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis, found that frozen spinach retained measurably more vitamin C than refrigerated fresh spinach that had been stored for 5 days. Not comparable. More. Your instinct that fresh equals better is understandable. The data says otherwise. Add the economics. A bag of frozen broccoli, frozen peas, or a stir-fry mix runs about $1.50 to $2. It never goes bad sitting in your freezer. No brown spots. No soft spots. No guilt. No slimy vegetables haunting the back of your produce drawer. Prep time is almost zero. No washing, no chopping, no peeling. Frozen bag into pan, olive oil, done. Keep 3 or 4 different varieties in your freezer at all times and you have the vegetable component of any meal covered in under 5 minutes every single night. I want to plant something here before we get to item 6. We are about halfway through the list. Later in this video, I am going to show you the one number that makes this entire list click, and it is not the total grocery bill. It is something most budget grocery channels never calculate. Stay with me. Item 6. Bananas. The 25-cent behavioral hack. 25 cents. The cheapest fresh fruit you will find anywhere in a grocery store. And for that quarter, you are getting 422 milligrams of potassium, a mineral your heart needs to maintain its electrical rhythm, your muscles need to contract properly, and your blood pressure needs to stay in a healthy range. Most Americans are chronically under-consuming potassium. The solution costs 25 cents. But here is what makes bananas actually interesting. The same fruit does different things depending on its ripeness. A green banana, firm, barely ripe, is loaded with resistant starch. Resistant starch does not digest in your small intestine. It passes through to your large intestine, where it feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut microbiome. You are essentially fertilizing your internal ecosystem for a quarter. A fully ripe spotted banana, the one most people throw away, has converted that resistant starch into natural sugars. The brown spots do not indicate a bad banana. They indicate peak sweetness. Freeze it. Use it in a smoothie. Mash it into baked goods and you need significantly less added sugar in the recipe. What you were about to throw in the trash is actually a free natural sweetener. No refrigeration required for the unripe ones. No plastic container. Nature packaged this thing better than any food manufacturer ever has. Now, there is a whole category of grocery store that most mainstream budget channels never mention, and it is where you can buy everything on this list for 20 to 50% less. I want to show you that before we get to item 7. This is the most actionable piece of information in this entire video for a large portion of viewers, and the most underreported. In nearly every American city, and in cities across the UK, Canada, and Australia, there are grocery stores that cater to specific immigrant communities. Asian grocery stores, Latin markets, Middle Eastern grocery stores, Indian grocery stores, West African markets. These stores stock many of the exact same commodity staples on this list: rice, dried lentils and beans, frozen vegetables, eggs, canned tomatoes, oils, and produce, at prices that are routinely 20 to 50% below mainstream supermarket prices. Why the difference? Several reasons. Many of these stores import directly, cutting out distributor middlemen. Their overhead is typically lower. Their customer base buys staples in quantity rather than convenience products. And they are not paying for the premium shelf space and brand marketing costs that are baked into the prices at major chains. A 10-pound bag of basmati rice at a mainstream grocery store runs $12 to $14. The same bag at an Asian grocery store or Indian market commonly runs $6 to $8. Dried lentils at a mainstream store cost $2.50 per pound. At a Middle Eastern grocery, frequently under $1.50. The produce, cabbage, bananas, potatoes, is almost always cheaper. You do not need to shop there exclusively. One trip per month specifically for the staples on this list can save an additional $20 to $40 on top of everything else we are discussing here. The quality is identical. The savings are real. And you will often find spices and flavor-building ingredients there that will make every meal on this list dramatically more interesting for cents per use. If you have one of these stores within reasonable distance and you have never walked in, you are leaving money on the table every single month. Back to the list. Item 7. Canned tomatoes, the pantry engine. Here is something the produce section does not want on your radar. Canned tomatoes are not a compromise. By several nutritional measures, they are a better product than the fresh tomatoes on that same grocery store shelf. Fresh tomatoes in most grocery stores were harvested green, then exposed to ethylene gas, a standard commercial practice to trigger color development before arrival. They look like tomatoes. They do not quite taste like tomatoes. And they have lost a significant portion of the nutritional value they would have contained if left on the vine to ripen naturally. Canned tomatoes were picked at peak ripeness and processed within hours. The heat from processing releases lycopene, a carotenoid compound with documented antioxidant properties and a growing body of research linking it to cardiovascular health in a form that is 3 to 4 times more bioavailable than lycopene from raw fresh tomatoes. You absorb dramatically more of it from the can. One note for health-conscious viewers: if you are concerned about BPA in can linings, there are BPA-free options available, including Muir Glen organic canned tomatoes and Pommy brand tomatoes packaged in cartons. Both are widely available and comparably priced to standard canned options. Worth knowing: a 28-ounce can of whole peeled tomatoes runs about $1.89. Crush them by hand before adding to the pan for better texture than anything blended. That one can is a pasta sauce on Monday, a soup base on Wednesday, and the foundation of a chili on Friday. 3 dinners. Under $2. In the winter months when fresh tomatoes are pale and mealy and deeply disappointing, the can wins on every measure: taste, nutrition, and price. Stop feeling guilty reaching for it. The data is with you. Item 8. Chicken thighs, the chef's choice. Walk into any serious restaurant kitchen and ask the chef which cut of chicken they use for braised dishes, stews, and roasted preparations. The answer almost universally is thighs. And yet the average grocery shopper walks straight to the boneless, skinless breast and pays $5 to $7 per pound for it. Chicken thighs cost $2 to $3 per pound. Nearly half the price. For the cut professionals actually prefer. The reason chefs choose thighs is the same reason you should. Dark meat contains more intramuscular fat than white meat. In cooking, that fat is insurance against error. It is the difference between a piece of chicken that stays moist even if you get distracted for an extra 4 minutes. Chicken breast is unforgiving. Thighs are forgiving. They hold marinades better, braise without disintegrating, and stay moist in a slow cooker all day. The nutritional anxiety around dark meat came largely from dietary guidelines published in the 1970s and 1980s. The fat profile of chicken thighs is predominantly unsaturated, similar in composition to the fat found in olive oil. It was not the threat it was framed as. Here is the bonus move that most people skip. Buy bone-in thighs. They are even cheaper than boneless. After cooking, save the bones in a sealed bag in your freezer. When the bag is full, cover the bones with water, add half an onion and a few garlic cloves, and simmer for 3 to 4 hours. You have just made homemade chicken stock worth $4 to $5 at the store. For essentially nothing. Restaurants charge a premium for dishes made with house stock. You are doing it on bones you would otherwise throw away. One family pack of bone-in thighs for $8 to $10 becomes grilled thighs Monday, a stir-fry Wednesday. 3 completely different meals. Roughly 80 cents per serving. Item 9. Olive oil, the anti-inflammatory cooking medias. Most home kitchens contain 3 or 4 different oils. Vegetable oil for high heat. Canola oil for baking. A finishing olive oil for salads. Maybe a bottle of coconut oil from a phase. Together, those bottles cost more than one large bottle of quality extra virgin olive oil, which does every single one of those jobs. Extra virgin olive oil has a smoke point of around 400 degrees Fahrenheit. High enough for sautéing, roasting, and the majority of everyday home cooking. And unlike refined vegetable oils, it brings something beyond just heat. A compound called oleocanthal. In 2005, researchers publishing in the journal Nature found that oleocanthal, a polyphenol in extra virgin olive oil, you are literally cooking with a natural anti-inflammatory compound. Now about light olive oil. That label is one of the most effective pieces of misdirection in the grocery store. Light refers to flavor, not calories, not fat content. Same caloric density. Same fat. Less taste. Fewer polyphenols. And it often costs more than extra virgin. You are paying a premium for a product that has been stripped of the things that make olive oil valuable. Buy a 1-liter bottle of quality extra virgin olive oil. $12 to $15. That handles all your cooking fat needs for a month. Store it in a dark cabinet away from your stove. Heat and light degrade the polyphenols. The bottle sitting decoratively next to the burner is slowly destroying what you paid for. Before item 10, I want to address something that will save you money on everything in this video, not just today. Here is a fact that the food industry knows and generally prefers consumers do not. For commodity staple foods, oats, peanut butter, canned tomatoes, pasta, frozen vegetables, butter, store brand and name brand products are frequently manufactured in the exact same production facilities. Same factories. Same equipment. Often the same recipe. Consumer Reports has documented. Investigative food journalists have documented it. It is standard practice within the industry. The difference between the name brand and store brand can of diced tomatoes or bag of frozen peas is typically the label artwork and the marketing budget that was calculated into the name brand price. On the 12 items in this video, switching consistently to store brand saves an estimated 20 to 30% on top of already low prices. That is another $15 to $25 per month. Another $200 per year. For nutritionally identical food. But here is something that nobody in the budget grocery conversation talks about, and it matters. Research on consumer behavior suggests that grocery shoppers make somewhere between 35 and 50 individual purchase decisions during a single store visit. That is 35 to 50 small moments of judgment and willpower. And here is what behavioral economists have documented about decision fatigue. The quality of your decisions degrades as the number of decisions increases. The more choices you make earlier in a shopping trip, the more likely you are to make impulsive, worse decisions later in the same trip. The supermarket is not organized to minimize your decisions. It is organized to maximize them. More choices, more categories browsed, more time in store, all of it correlates with higher spend. The 12-item list in this video is not just financially efficient. It eliminates decision fatigue almost entirely. You walk in knowing exactly what you are buying. You skip entire aisles. You are not making 40 choices. You are making 12. The willpower budget you preserve on the grocery run, that stays with you for the rest of the day. Item 10. Peanut butter, the shelf-stable protein engine. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. 8 grams of protein. Approximately 15 cents. Try building that equation anywhere else in the store. You cannot. An 18-ounce jar of peanut butter costs about $3 and gives you roughly 17 servings. That works out to about 18 cents per serving for 8 grams of protein, vitamin E, magnesium, and monounsaturated fats. No refrigeration required until opened. Once open, it stays perfectly stable on the shelf for 2 to 3 months. This jar does not expire on you. It does not create urgency. It does not generate guilt. There are two fundamentally different products being sold in the peanut butter aisle. Natural peanut butter ingredients, peanuts, salt, and commercial peanut butter, which typically contains hydrogenated oils. The commercial version is specifically engineered to make you use more of it faster. The natural version is the product. It is often the same price or cheaper per ounce at store brand and warehouse store shelves. The oil separation at the top of natural peanut butter is just physics. Stir it once when you first open it. Then store the jar upside down. The oil migrates back through the peanut paste, and you will rarely need to stir again. Done. Mix a spoonful into your morning oatmeal and you have built a breakfast that carries you to noon without snacking. Thin it with soy sauce, lime juice, garlic, and a little chili. You have a 5-minute satay sauce for noodles or chicken that costs almost nothing. Now, I said earlier I was saving one item for near the end because it changes how you think about the whole list. This is it. Item 11. Potatoes, the most filling food in the store. In 1995, researchers at the University of Sydney, they fed study participants equal calorie portions of 38 different foods and measured how full those participants felt over the following 2 hours. The goal was empirical: which foods keep you full the longest per calorie. White boiled potato ranked number 1. Not second. Not close to the top. Number 1. Above beef. Above eggs. Above brown rice. Above oatmeal. By a significant margin. And yet for the last 2 decades, the low-carb movement has successfully convinced a large portion of the population to be afraid of potatoes. The actual issue was never the potato. It was what people routinely put on the potato: the butter, the sour cream, the cheese, the bacon. Strip those away and you have one of the most filling, nutrient-dense, and affordable foods in the entire store. A medium potato delivers 620 milligrams of potassium, more than a banana. It contains more vitamin C per gram than a raw tomato. It provides 4 grams of fiber, 4 grams of protein, and 37 grams of complex carbohydrates. It is fat-free. It is cholesterol-free. And it costs approximately 25 cents. Here is the practical setup. Bake 8 potatoes on Sunday. 1 hour in the oven, about 5 minutes of actual attention. You now have the base or side for multiple dinners throughout the week. Top a potato with the beans from item 3 and a handful of frozen vegetables from item 5 and you have a complete nutritionally balanced meal for under $1. No supplements required. No protein powder. No complexity. The low-carb diet industry built a substantial business on demonizing the 25-cent potato. The data from 1995 was always there. Now you have it. Item 12. Cabbage, the 60-day anchor. A head of cabbage costs $1 to $2. That is roughly 3 pounds of vegetable. And here is the number that matters most about cabbage, and the reason I saved it for last. A head of cabbage stored in your refrigerator lasts 60 days. 2 full months. That bag of mixed spring greens you bought with the best of intentions is dead by Thursday. Fresh spinach, if you are fortunate, sees the weekend. Cabbage sits in your refrigerator, completely unbothered, completely intact for 60 days. It does not rot. It does not wilt. It does not create guilt. It waits. And because it waits, it is available when every other vegetable in your crisper has already become a memory. Most people treat cabbage as boring filler. This is a mistake. Per 100 grams, cabbage contains more vitamin C than a small orange, which surprises nearly everyone, because cabbage does not announce itself nutritionally. It just delivers. Researchers studying cruciferous vegetables have documented compounds called glucosinolates in cabbage that become active when the vegetable is cut or chopped, with an emerging body of research into their broader health effects. Coleslaw. Stir-fry. Braised low and slow in a pot with the chicken thighs from item 8 for 40 minutes. Added to soups. Used as taco filling. These are all obvious. Here is the one most people skip entirely. Take shredded raw cabbage, and I mean raw, not cooked, and toss it into any hot dish in the last 2 minutes of cooking. A stir-fry, a bowl of ramen, a curry. The cabbage wilts just slightly, adds a mild crunch, absorbs the cooking liquid, and triples the volume of the dish for essentially no cost. You just extended a 2-serving meal into a 3-serving meal with a vegetable that costs 30 cents for the portion you used. And then there is this. Fermented cabbage, sauerkraut. You have seen it in health food stores in glass jars for $6 to $7. Here is what that $6 jar actually costs to make yourself. Shred half a head of cabbage. Toss it with 1 teaspoon of kosher salt per pound of cabbage. Pack it tightly into a clean glass jar. Weigh the cabbage down so it stays submerged in the brine it produces. Leave it at room temperature for 5 to 7 days. What you end up with is a probiotic-rich fermented food, the same product the health food store is charging $6 or $7 for. 1 ingredient. 1 jar you already own. 5 minutes of prep. The pre-shredded bags in the produce section charge 3 times more for the convenience of someone else having chopped it. Buy the whole head. Use a knife. 30 seconds of your time. Let me show you the number I promised you earlier. The one most budget grocery channels never actually calculate. Here is 1 month of groceries using these 12 items in practical household quantities. 3 dozen eggs, approximately $5. A 10-pound bag of rice, $8. 2 pounds of dried beans, $4. 2 large canisters of oats, $8. 4 bags of frozen vegetables, $6. 4 bunches of bananas, $4. 4 cans of tomatoes, $7.50. 1 family pack of chicken thighs, $10. 1 liter of olive oil, $12. 1 large jar of peanut butter, $5. A 5-pound bag of potatoes, $3.50. 2 heads of cabbage, $3. Total approximately $76 per person per month. The national average for a single adult, according to the USDA's Cost of Food report, is approximately $190 per month. The gap between those two numbers is $114 per person every month. $1,368 per year. For a 2-person household, that is over $2,700 annually, money that currently goes to items you did not plan to buy, food you ended up throwing away, and packaging for products you did not need. But here is what this list is, at its core. It is not 12 isolated groceries. It is a system. Each item makes the others more valuable. Eggs for breakfast alongside oats. Rice and beans forming a complete protein base. Chicken thighs stretched across 3 dinners with rice as the multiplier. Potatoes as the most filling side dish the Satiety Index has ever measured. Cabbage, lasting all month as the vegetable backbone of every meal. Bananas and peanut butter for fuel when you need it fast. Canned tomatoes tying every savory dish together. Olive oil carrying flavor and nutrition across everything. And now add the layer most people skip, the freezer. Of these 12 items, most freeze exceptionally well. Cooked rice freezes in individual portions. Reheat in 2 minutes. Cooked beans freeze and thaw without losing texture. Chicken thighs marinate and freeze raw. Pull 1 bag per week. Ripe bananas freeze immediately. Even cabbage, blanched briefly, freezes for soups and stews. 1 afternoon per month, call it 90 minutes. Spent batch cooking and freezing portions of these 12 items means that on the nights when you are tired, when you do not feel like cooking, when every instinct says to order delivery or grab something expensive and processed on the way home, you have a complete meal in the freezer that costs $1.50. The impulse purchase that was going to cost you $15 to $20 never happens. That is where the real savings compound. Not just in what you buy, but in what you do not buy, because the alternative is already ready. One more thing worth saying. These 12 items are commodity staples. They are the foods with the lowest price volatility of any category in the grocery store. Between 2020 and 2024, cumulative grocery inflation across most food categories. The items on this list, rice, beans, oats, frozen vegetables, cabbage, potatoes, were largely insulated from the worst of those increases. The more unpredictable grocery prices become, the more stable this list stays. You are not just saving money. You are insulating yourself from a category of financial stress that affects most households but does not have to affect yours. Drop a 1 in the comments if you are rebuilding your grocery list from scratch this month. I read every single one. It also tells me directly what content to make next. And if you have not subscribed yet, here is the specific reason to do it right now. Next week's video is going to be uncomfortable in a very specific way. I am going to walk you through 5 products that major supermarket chains deliberately position at eye level using documented shelf placement strategies and behavioral engineering, specifically to get you to buy things you did not come in for. More importantly, I will show you which shelf in the exact same aisle holds the better version at a lower price. None of those 5 products are on this list. All 5 are probably in your cart right now. See you there.